call this meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. I want to acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory and the land on which we are meeting is the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Oji Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. As a council and a municipality, we will continue to work on moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. I'll ask for an adoption of the motion for the adoption of the minutes, please.
Resolve that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held at City Hall on March 11th, 2024 be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Doyle, seconded by Councillor Meyer. All those in favor? And that's carried. We have no delegations this evening. We'll move right into opening public hearing for request for variation PC 12-24, Titmeyer at 146 3rd Street Northwest. I'll ask if there is anybody here to speak in favor of the application. If you just want to come up to the microphone and state your name, please, first and last name.
Good evening. My name is Nancy. Last name is Titmeyer.
Titmeyer. Oh, I said it wrong, Nancy. I apologize.
That's all right.
You can either make a statement or answer questions, whatever you'd like.
Well, I think I'd like to just kind of give a bit of a history of why I'm asking for this. My mom was born and raised in Portage la Prairie. She was born with handicap arthritis, and she fell in October, and unfortunately she won't be able to walk again. So she's moved in with me, and I'm very grateful that she has done that. I actually moved home in 2020 to help take care of her, and my house needs a little bit more room than what it has at present, and we're asking for the variation. So it increases her quality of life in the last stages of her life.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions? No? Thank you. If we have questions further, we'll call you up.
Awesome. Okay? Thanks.
Thank you. I'll ask if anyone else is here to speak in favor of the application. I'll ask if anyone is here to speak against the application. Once again, anyone against? Is there any letters to be read out?
No, there are no letters.
Does council have any questions of the applicant or planning district? No? Okay. If not, then I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved, and I so move that the public hearing for variation PC 1224 Titmeyer at 146 3rd Street Northwest now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Massey. All those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you heard the applicant so eloquently put it there previously, you're going to see in front of you a report to council asking for a variation, which I'll disclose in just a second. There is a sketch there of what the design will look like, and of course the site plan location as well for your reference. So as you had heard, oh, there we go. The applicant is applying for a request for variation to vary the front yard requirement of 7.5 meters to be reduced down to 3 meters. The rationale is, first of all, it is an R1 residential single family home, and the applicant, of course, wishes to remove the current porch that's there and build a larger porch at the front of their dwelling. Modification is necessary because the applicant's mother uses a wheelchair, and the new porch will allow her to move around more freely and have better access to the existing wheelchair ramp. You will notice that there's a bunch of previous minutes that were referenced that have approved similar requests in the past, ranging anywhere from 2.7 meters right up to 3.9 meters for the reduction. Public notices had been sent to all property owners within a 100-meter radius, and as you can see, there's been no objections. So with that said, it's the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of Nancy Tetmeyer to vary the front yard requirement of 7.5 meters to be reduced to 3 meters at the property known as 146 3rd Street Northwest, which is legally described as lots 40, 42, Plan 18 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. Any questions or comments? Did you have one?
Yeah, I just had one
Councillor Mo-
question, and I certainly am in favor of, and would be voting in favor of the motion. But when the house is sold, I guess this is a question for the planning. When the house is sold, this variation stays with the house. Am I right? There's never a expiration period that goes with it. Can you just clarify that for me, please?
Mr. Pito?
Through your worship to Councillor Meyer, my belief, and I'll allow planning to correct me if I'm not correct, is that yes, that once it's the variation is put in place, then it stays with the property. There are situations where if council has concerns about variations, they can put conditions on expiry of change of ownership, but this is not a request of in this document.
Thank you, Your Worship. That's all.
Thank you. I just have a comment that I just think the way we are moving in our province and when it comes to senior plans, et cetera, and having opportunity for seeing people age in place rather than going into care in a respectful way is admirable. So I'm definitely in favor of this variance to allow this person to be able to do that. So for sure. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Worship and colleagues. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee has nothing in this part of the agenda.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development Committee, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing further to report.
Thank you. Community Services Committee, Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Community Services Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Waterworks Committee has nothing to report this in the agenda item at this portion of the meeting.
Thank you. Transportation Committee, Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Your Worship. Transportation Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Public Safety Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. We have no deferred business. We'll move right into new business. We have the PRED funding agreement with the RM of Portage la Prairie. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Worship. Colleagues, this evening we are looking at approving signing of a letter of agreement with the Arm of Portage regarding funding for Portage Regional Economic Development, or PRED as we know. The background, the Portage la Prairie, the City of Portage and the Arm of Portage mutually fund PRED to serve as the regional economic development organization for both municipalities. There is currently an agreement between the City and RM and Central Plains Inc., OA PRED, that expires on December 31, 2024. The proposed letter of agreement will complement that agreement, which will be reviewed when it expires. Traditionally, this funding arrangement has been renewed annually through each municipality's budget process. This annual funding model has made it challenging for PRED to conduct long-term planning and focus on key priorities. It is the intention of both municipalities to affirm multiple-year support at the 2024 budget levels through the signing of a letter of agreement to allow PRED to move forward on key multi-year strategic priorities. The details are as follows. First of all, the City and the RM confirmed 2024 baseline requested funding for an additional 4 years, concluding December 31, 2027. Secondly, PRED will maintain a tourism-focused position during this time, which will focus on developing, maintaining, advertising, and promoting tourism assets in the entire region. Thirdly, in September of 2027, both funding partners commit to meet to discuss future funding plans for PRED and the tourism position. You'll see the funding will be provided as follows. The City of Portage la Prairie will be funding PRED at $261,710 annually. The RM of Portage la Prairie will be funding PRED at $112,162 annually. And that the Arm of Portage has approved this letter of agreement at their March 12, 2024 meeting, council meeting. The administrative recommendation, and I would move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie authorize the Mayor to sign the letter of agreement with the Arm of Portage la Prairie and Portage Regional Economic Development for a 4-year term ending December 31, 2027.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Do we have any questions or comments on this? Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Just as being a large proponent of economic development within our region and the great relationship that we have with the RM, as you're aware, PRED's been around probably since about 2015, has done excellent work since that date, and I think it shows in some of our building permits and some of our records and the work that's been going on lately. To see the tourism-focused position in this as well gets me excited as well, and I think it's about time that we have some long-term funding for this organization to go forward. Gives them stability, allows them to carry out the strategic plan that has been put forward, and just moves the organization in the right direction. So for that reason, Madam Worship, I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Your Worship. I echo what Councillor Meyer has said, and for me, this is a real great achievement for our council, that we have agreement with our partners in the RM to give our economic department a longer-term funding agreement. And this is the exact same thing that municipalities ask from the province, longer-term, predictable funding, so they can do their job. So I fully support this. I'm pleased this has come forward. I know it's been frustrating since I've been on council. Every year we do our budget, then we wait. And the organization of PRED has to wait also to see what their final number is. So really, I'm happy about this. It's part of our strategic plan, which we said we would talk about tourism and really focus on tourism. So, and I also want to thank our partner, the Arm of Portage la Prairie, for also seeing that and approving this letter. So I'll be voting for this. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'll just say that I'm proud of this funding agreement that we're going to enter into for a number of reasons. I'm proud of our administration, both on our side, and thankful to the administration and the RM that have worked to kind of get us to this, and I'm also proud of both our council and the RM of council that we can come up with this and agree on it as a region, and understanding that we're being forward thinking in what we see, where we want our region to go, and that we are actually putting something behind what we know the value of PRED is and tourism in our region. So definitely behind this agreement. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we'll move another item of new business, the 2023 year-end financial statements. Finance, Legislative and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship and colleagues. This evening, we are to review and approve the 2023 pre-audit financial statements for the City of Portage la Prairie. This year's year-end financial statements have been completed in advance of our external audit. Our external auditors are expecting to complete their field audit in April, and will provide the audited financial statements for City Council approval by June. You have below just some narrative about our surpluses. The general fund will have a surplus of $1,778,000, and you can see where those surpluses arose. A big part of it, of course, was thanks to our increase in our municipal operating grant that we finally were lifted from the freeze from the provincial government for many years, that we now have increased funding on our operating grant. On the utility side, we have an operational surplus of $2,073,000. This year-end surplus is primarily due to, and you can see a big chunk of it was $1.605 million in additional water and sewer revenue. For the general fund, there is $4.6 million in capital requests for 2025 on the 10-year capital plan, and it's recommended that the surplus be allocated to the general reserve as part of the 2025 budget process. And for the utility, there is a $87.8 million in capital requests for 2025, and this includes major plant upgrades. So it's recommended that the surplus be allocated to the utility reserve as part of our 2025 budget process to be used for funding future products. So it's the administrative recommendation. I'd move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the 2023 pre-audit financial statements.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments? I just have a comment is that, I've always found when you look at these and all of a sudden you see, oh, well, we have a 1.6 surplus, right? Seems like a big number. And I appreciate this report when the next line tells you that we have $87.8 million in capital requests. It puts it into perspective of what that actually means. So I just appreciate how clear it is for us to understand where this money needs to go. So thank you to the Waterworks Department and administration for that. And finance, I guess. Finance is who should be thanked, I guess. Thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, new business, PRA Workplace Safety Officer Funding Agreement. Again, Councillor Massey, it's your night.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. Colleagues, the issue here is to approve the Workplace Safety Officer Funding Agreement with the Portage Regional Recreation Authority. The background is since 2015, the Portage Regional Recreation Authority has paid a percentage of the city's workplace safety officer salary based on the number of days of service provided to them. The PRRA would like to renew the agreement for an additional 3-year term with 5 days of service a month, paying 25% of the workplace safety officer's salary. The administrative recommendation, I'm prepared to move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the Workplace Safety Officer Funding Agreement with the Portage Regional Recreation Authority for a 3-year term beginning April 1, 2024 and ending March 31, 2027.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments? I just have a question. So this position's been in since 2015. Now, I know it's a shared position with more than PRRA. I'm just curious who that all is and sort of, what was this position before that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll do my best to answer your question. Previously, there was an arrangement with the RM that they also served as a safety officer for the RM. The RM has since taken some of those responsibilities in-house and no longer is part of that shared agreement. So right now, the only entities sharing the safety officer are the city and the PRRA. Although if there are other departments and partners that request some training or anything like that, we would definitely work with them in that capacity.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay. New business, land transfer of former Agassiz Youth Center land. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship and colleagues. The issue here is to adjust the previously approved terms for the transfer of approximately 26 acres of land from the province of Manitoba to the city of Portage la Prairie. You may recall we did consider this earlier in August for an initial look. The background, on March 24, 2022, the province announced it would close the Agassiz Youth Center and remediate the grounds for the purpose of building a new regional hospital facility within the city of Portage. The province has determined that it did not require the full land parcel formerly occupied by AYC and offered to transfer approximately 26 acres of surplus land to the city of Portage for future development. And you have an aerial map that's attached with that. The 26 acres of land have significant potential for future commercial and residential development for the city of Portage la Prairie, and this parcel has reasonable access to water and wastewater infrastructure, but an additional lift station would be likely be required for significant development. Additionally, full development potential of the land parcel upgrades will have to occur to the current intersection at Crescent Road East and River Road with the development of a new roadway. On August 14th, 2023, Council approved the transfer on terms that now require adjustments due to a delay while investigating other land use options. The adjustments are as follows. Number one, initially the province was going to be responsible for property remediation. They have now committed to placing $1.6 million in trust for the city to manage this, and the province has committed staff resources to assist in the remediation. Number 2, the province will now remove the fencing and concrete conduit containing decommissioned steam condensate at their expense. Third, the city is now responsible for removing the encumbrances such as buildings and utility infrastructure as outlined in Schedule B, as well as removing any unwanted buildings and related infrastructure in Schedule C of the agreement. The full report that was approved in August of 2023 is attached for reference. Administration anticipates presenting plans to Council for the development of this parcel in the fall of 2024. It's the administrative recommendation that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the adjusted terms of the transfer agreement between the City of Portage la Prairie and the Province of Manitoba as presented, and authorize the Mayor and City Manager to sign the agreement on behalf of the City.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments from anyone? Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I certainly remember the August 14th, 2023 report to Council. Just to be clear, when it says they're placing the $1.6 million in trust, can you just run down point form, just kind of how that works and what we're responsible for, and if costs were to either be less or exceed that amount?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Meyer. So the intention is not unlike a lot of programs work with the provincial government. They transfer the money in trust, and then as we, for example, do an RFP for the decommissioning of the site, and we're aware of the values, we can issue receipts for that money, and that money would be transferred. It will likely be a lot like our utility projects, where the money is actually accessible, but we need permission from the province to access it. And as soon as we receive that permission, it can be a seamless transfer into our bank accounts. In terms of the risk proposition, because I think it's a fair question of you to ask, is there has been analysis of the site and estimates provided, and then a reasonable contingency fund allowed for in that amount for us to manage the assets and the decommissioning that has been outlined. The province taking on the fence and the other condensate trench is something that was of reasonable concern to the city, because there are potentially some environmental asbestos related remediation items. So those two items being removed and then being provided with in-depth decommissioning estimates, administration feels comfortable. I don't want to suggest that there isn't any risk to the municipality that it could exceed that amount, but we believe that risk is reasonable.
Thank you. That satisfies that. One follow-up question, Madam Mayor, if I
Sure.
may, is once now, so then the land becomes ours, and it is still zoned as it was previously, but we now have that land and we have the option to do with it what council chooses to do with it. Am I correct in that simplistic understanding?
That's correct, Councillor Meyer. So the property, as we plan and consult with council and the community about how to move forward with the property, you'll see subdivisions proposed and zoning proposed that will be set up for the use that we envision for that future growth of our community. So there'll be opportunities for council to provide input, also for the community at large to provide input through council. And yes, it will need to be rezoned, subdivided, and treated like a new part of our community.
Excellent. And my final question, if I may,
Sure.
Madam Worship, is what does administration think final or estimated timeline would be?
So currently, through Your Worship to Councillor Meyer, currently administration is reviewing the best way to service the lot in terms of utility and also a land, trying to think of the correct term, just in terms of grading plan for the overall lot. So we need to think about where the appropriate places to put the resources needed to develop it. When we get the numbers associated with that, then our intention is to come back to council and have a discussion about what that looks like. And then after that, we can have a discussion about how we'll move forward with the property. Our discussion so far is that our intention is to move forward with an RFP to have a developer take on a portion or significant portions of that property that aligns with a vision how council would like to see the area developed.
Super. And that satisfies my questions. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Your Worship. A question to our city manager. Have you got a sense on the city responsibility cost? Just is that figure, do you have a sense of what that estimate would be to fulfill that responsibility?
Through your worship to Councillor Massey. And so if you're asking about the city's responsibilities in this agreement and how it relates to the $1.6 million figure, so we did review internally in terms of that. We also had a conversation with contractors who are in this line of work, and it was felt that amount is reasonable. Again, there's always some level of risk that this is a site that has been developed for some time, and there may be some things that we're unaware of. However, the province of Manitoba has a fairly strong asset management system and a fairly strong record of tracking their assets, so we feel comfortable with the number provided. There's also in the agreement referenced provincial assistance in the process of decommissioning, and that the goal of that is so because they know where everything is, and they can counsel us through that process and their bid process and how they provided those estimates.
Councillor Massey?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just on the third bullet, though, what I'm referencing, maybe I wasn't clear. Any sense of the city costs around, removing the encumbrances, utilities, unwanted buildings, and so on?
I think that that's where the 1.6 is. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Right? Yeah.
So through your worship to Councillor Massey, so definitely the building, we have very solid estimates in terms of it. That the contingency allowed within that 1.6 million gives consideration to those other components.
Thank you.
Thank you. If nothing else, all those in favor, and that is carried. Thank you. You're off the hook now, Councillor Massey. So we have new business, the award of the vacuum truck tender, Waterworks Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Now I'm on the hook.
Mm-hmm.
So, Your Worship and colleagues, what we have in front here is an award tender to supply that of a vacuum truck for the city. So the issue is to award of a vacuum truck unit -24 OPS 005, or not to. The analysis of the tender was advertised on the city website as well as Merck's. 9 companies were sent tenders and 2 bids were received. The tender closed March 12th, 2024. The submitted tenders were evaluated and the bid prices and points were awarded as follows. Inland truck and equipment, the price was was $258,646.08. Net of GST is $247,099.38, and they scored a total of 93.13 points. The second proponent was Maxim Truck and Trailer, and their price that they issued was $260,825.60. Net of GST was $249,181.60, and their points were 92.69. The vacuum truck is an integral part of the Waterworks daily operation. It is used with the jet truck to unblock and plug sewer mains and for regular maintenance of these mains. And it also is for soft digging traffic signs where necessary. The vacuum truck is also used to dig holes by way of hydrovac and the jet truck into the ground soft dig, as some may know it, to locate sewer and or water mains or types of utilities, high pressure gas mains, etc. that require a watch person. The bid price on this unit came in at $247,000 and $99.38 net of GST. This year's budget for this purchase was $250,000. So it's the administration recommendation, and I so move that the city, the council and the city of Portage la Prairie award the tender for the supply of 1 vacuum truck as specified in tender 24 OPS 005 to Inland Truck and Equipment Limited for the tender price of $247,099.38 net of GST. I so move.
Moved by Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Porter. Any questions or comments? Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Worship. Not a question on the truck at all, actually, but just I apologize. I'm just having a bit of a disconnect. When it's net of GST, do we claim that GST back? Is that how that works? Like, and the question is probably more for finance is that when we set a budget, so this year's budget for this purchase is $250,000. The bid price came in at $247,000, but actually is at $258,000. Is that considered over budget?
Thank you. Through your worship to Councillor Meyer, I'm going to refer this question to our Acting Director of Corporate Services, Ms. McCullough, and maybe she could give us an answer on that one.
Yes, we do claim back all our GST, so we get that back. So we would still be within budget.
Just simply as that.
That
Simple as
answers that question. I don't know why I was having that disconnect in my head. So the actual price of that is actually $247,099.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Great question.
Thank you for your patience, Madam Marshal.
I have a question. I'm probably going to be in favor of this if we can name it. I think we need to hold another contest, Councillor Nichols.
Your Worship, I'm totally in favor of that. But if we could move forward with the purchase tonight, that would make my evening.
Perfect.
Is it too late to make the recommendation of Larry? Larry and
Larry. Awesome. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Another item of new business, a submission of priority projects to the Manitoba Water Services Board. Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. In front of us, we have a submission of priority projects for the Manitoba Water Services Board. The issue is to submit this list of priorities and projects for 2025 to 2030. So to give you a bit of a background, the analysis is Manitoba Water Services Board is a provincial agency that assists municipalities with the development of water and wastewater infrastructure through funding programs. Each year, MWSB accepts applications from the municipalities for projects for consideration of funding, which they use to establish their capital funding plan for the next 5 years. A secondary purpose is to ensure the government of Manitoba understands the water and wastewater infrastructure needs throughout the province. For the 2025 to 2030 plan, municipalities are encouraged to submit their top 10 priority projects by April 30th, 2024. Projects that qualify through the municipal water and sewer program are eligible for up to 50% funding, and pipelines approved under the Rural Water Development Program qualify for up to 2/3 of the funding. Administration has reviewed and discussed the critical projects for utility infrastructure and intends to submit the following 10 projects that are listed here in this information as the city's priority projects, 1 through 10. And they're right there in front of you. They've done a great job in terms of correlating the material, the wants and needs, and this is our submission. So the administration recommendation is, and I so move, the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie authorize administration to submit 10 priority utility projects as indicated in this report to the Manitoba Water Services Board for the 2025 and 2030 funding considerations, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Porter. Any questions or comments? Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I appreciate the report from our chair. Certainly a lot of need. I'd like to ask administration, as you know, there is no future right now federal infrastructure program for water. We've talked about that at the FCM level, and I don't want to put administration in any political sort of commentary, but just if there was another program, how much more could we do with a lot of these projects that right now the Water Services Board is the only agency that we can get funding for?
Sound like a politician here, but so I think it's important to remember when we receive funding from the Manitoba Water Services Board, it's at 50%. And when we receive funding under federal provincial programs, it's generally 73%. Roughly. So it's a big difference in terms of the overall funding, especially when you're talking at some of these projects at $20 million. So when we do our budgeting, that means that we have to hope to get 50% funding, but we also have to budget and capital plan for 100% of that cost. Council has set strategic priorities in terms of enhancing our utility capacity to attract new business. Not having that funding can limit our ability to attract new economic opportunity in our region, and I think that should be of concern to council. So it's the difference between 50 and 73, I know it does not seem significant, but when you're talking about values this large, it is very significant. So Municipalities across the country are definitely concerned that there isn't formal announcements of a utility program, because that is probably the highest, greatest need for municipalities across the country.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. And well, just I would say you just came from the water conference, am I correct? Right? And from just conversations with political colleagues, I would imagine that there was conversations with your colleagues about how many of these types of projects there are in our province. It seems to be everywhere. Um, are you finding concern from your colleagues through Nathan?
I think it's best to speak in generalities,
Yeah.
but the general consensus is yes, there's a continual messaging of resource strain, the aging infrastructure crisis that's happening across our province as well as Western Canada is hitting an all-time high, and like you said, without additional funding, it's definitely becoming more apparent. The focus is on, climate change and resiliency, but yet the retrofitting and refurbishment of existing infrastructure also needs to be a priority. And it's hard to even look at growth when you have to maintain what you already have. But definitely a message that's being felt and being expressed across the province.
Thank you. Well, I can say that as a council that we'll commit to pushing that message forward as much as we can, for sure. Thank you. Did we vote yet? No. Sorry. All those in favor? And that is carried. New business. Award of land application of biosolids tender. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, in front of you, we have biosolids land application contract. So the issue here is to award the contract for the 2024 land application of biosolids from the Water Pollution Control Facility as per tender 24 OPS 008. So what we did here is we put together the tender for the land application for biosolids for the Water Pollution Control Facility. 5 copies of the tender were requested and 1 was received. The bid was evaluated and scored according to qualifications, experience, sustainability, factors, and price. Points were awarded as follows. So lone submitter bidder on this is Assiniboine Injections Limited. Total points were 99.53, and the bid price net of GST is $334,000. The 2024 budget for land application of biosolids is $400,000. As the contract makes no assurances about the total amount of biosolids to be removed, the contractor is paid per ton, not a lump sum. And Assiniboine Injections has successfully performed this work for the city of Portage la Prairie over 25 years. They are familiar with the facility and have a good rapport with local farmers and are accommodating regarding the scheduling. So it's the administration recommendation, and I so move that the council of the city of Portage la Prairie award the tender for the land application of biosolids for 2024 to Assiniboine Injections Limited for a total contract price of up to $334,000 net of GST. I so move.
Moved by Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Porter. Any questions or comments? I feel I've asked this question before, but to administration, is there other contractors out there in our province that do this, or because it seems like every year it's always the same one?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll refer that to Ms. Friesen.
There are other contractors who are capable of doing similar work, but it's done in a different fashion. Assiniboine Injections has been the primary provider of this service across the province for decades and are used by most municipalities. We have had other bids from contractors coming out of province who do the same application style, but because they are out of province, it's usually much more costly. So,
Thanks. All those in favor? And that is carried. We have no items of old business, so we'll adjourn council at 6:40 p.m. and we'll move right into committee. Call committee to order at 6:40 p.m. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee has no report for committee this evening.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development Committee, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. City Planning and Economic Development Committee doesn't have anything formal on the agenda, but I did want to bring up, excuse me, just one topic. As tourism falls underneath my portfolio and also falls, of course, underneath Pred's portfolio, I'd just like to kind of keep council updated on to some of the events that have happened. And we did have a Portage Regional Tourism Committee meeting last week. And I just wanted to kind of, if possible, was to ask our Economic Development Officer, Eva Leary, to just talk about, there was a Congress, Sport Tourism Canada 2024 Sport Event Congress, that not only did our Executive Director of the PRA attend, but also our Regional Tourism Coordinator, Kelly Verway. Can I just ask you to update council on kind of what that was and kind of where it went?
Sure, thank you, Councillor Meyer. So last week, Kelly Verway, in attendance with Angie from PRA, attended the Sports Tourism Conference in Winnipeg. So sports tourism is one of the fastest growing tourism segments globally, and as you're aware, in our recent economic impact assessment for this region is one of Portage's main areas for growth. So the conference focused on bringing national sports organization, host communities and events vendors from across Canada together. And they really focused in on sport and truth and reconciliation. They learned best practices of bidding and hosting and how to make it happen. Really focusing in on the impacts of climate change on sport hosting, and then also learned opportunities on how to look for alternative revenue, and then focusing in on culture centering in major events as well. So really focused on professional development, but also positioning Portage la Prairie with more tools and resources to make us more competitive in the tourism industry. So appreciate council's support.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. O'Leary. And I just felt, council, that it was important that to bring it up, especially now after our funding agreement has been approved, specifically tourism being a part of that, that this really dovetailed with that. And it just shows you some of the practices, I guess, and I understand, sorry, that Councillor Espy was there as well, but some of the practices that the Tourism Committee will be pursuing, of course, in partnership with our stakeholders as well. So I just thought it was important to update council on that. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, Community Services Committee, Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have the 2023 Portage la Prairie Regional Library Annual Report. Through Your Worship, I'd like to invite Jen Kendall to present that report.
Welcome.
All right, let's see if I can get close enough to the mic this time. How's
We
everyone
have
doing?
new mics, so.
There we go. All right. So I'll jump right in. This is kind of a sneak peek at our annual report. It's not quite done yet, but I wanted to let everyone know how we've been doing. We did, one of our major achievements in 2023 was creating our first ever strategic plan. And as part of that process, the board sat down and we defined the library's mission and vision and values for the first time, and they're all listed there for you. Last year, library staff answered over 10,000 questions, and then we have, including in-house and digital items, we circulated 122,000 materials, and our highest ever digital circulation. We had over 55,000 visits, which is again one of our highest ever. When comparing the average circulation to our active patrons, the average library user received almost $1,200 in value, as opposed to having to buy the materials themselves. And there is a calculator on our website if you want to see how much you saved if you're a library user. We had a big spike in our computer usage. It more than doubled. And we added over 250 feet of shelving, and we now have the largest additional languages collection of any single branch library in Manitoba. We're third overall, and that includes Winnipeg. So, um, with our collection, there we go. With our collection, we had a three-way tie in the most popular books, which are there at the top. Our most popular graphic novel and graphic novel series was Heartstopper, and our most popular DVD series was The Librarians, which I'm very privately pleased about. We added a board game library last year thanks to PCRC, and we had those circulated 51 times, and 146 homes in the region were tested for radon thanks to our radon screener program. And then we did break down our, I like to break down the collection by the percentage of the collection versus the percentage of circulation. So if you can see that adult fiction is our largest collection and also our largest amount of circulation. And this kind of tells us where we should be investing our money. Like you can see primary books are just about 5% of our collection, but they're 10% of our circulation. So that's been where we've been focusing more of our funding when we're buying books, is to increase that collection because it's very popular. Another thing we did this year is we broke down our members based on where they live. We have members throughout Manitoba and across the globe. I am now on a mission to get one in every continent. So just a little thing. And I compared this past year to 2019 because we've seen a substantial growth even through COVID, especially in our block memberships, which are also referred to as educator memberships. They allow teachers and homeschoolers to get more materials for longer periods of time so they can meet their educational goals without having to make trips to the library every week, which is, it becomes quite, it's a lot of work. This past year, we received over $130,000 in grant funding. We used that to purchase some of the shelving. We purchased air quality monitors, just over 500 additional language books, which have been very popular. We also had a substantial increase in our library receipts, so the funding we bring in, not just through fundraising, but through DVD rental fees and other, charges that happen in the course of our operations. Let's see. Another area that I've been focusing on is our technology offerings and really kind of expanding those and catching us up. We had a number of repair manuals, which sounds kind of interesting, but they're very expensive and they're very low circulation, like how to repair, a 1974 Dodge. So we'd have that, but we also have EBSCO-host, which is provided through the province, and that has all of that material on it. So we did some training and made sure that staff are adequately able to help patrons find what they're looking for, and it's reduced the amount of people we have to turn away because we don't have the specific manual they're looking for. And it's also reduced the amount of books that get damaged because as you can all imagine, trying to fix your carburetor and keep a library book clean don't really go together. So we've seen a substantial increase in that, and I expect it to continue. We also have expanded our accessibility technology. We have Victor readers, we've upgraded some of the materials, and we have tablets and other materials where we can demonstrate to people the value in these services, whether for themselves or their loved ones, so they can take that knowledge home with them and they can feel connected to the library and read the materials they want to read without feeling left behind. As you all know, we painted our building and it's beautiful. Everyone loves it. We're going to get better pictures, but that's the time of year. But yeah, it looks really great and we're really pleased with it. And we got a new sign in the front window there with the swoosh, and they blended it into Herman Pryor, so it all looks nice and cohesive. There we go. Our program attendance continues to increase post-COVID. We've reintroduced old favorites such as Read Between the Frames and our craft programs, but we have also established new traditions such as Trick or Treat in the library, which gets bigger every year, and it's really a great time. we also have some dinosaurs that stop by the library on occasion, especially in Dino-Vember, which is a new annual tradition. But being as they're dinosaurs, they stop by when they please, and I have no control over it. So I can't predict it. We did also put a bouncy castle in the library to celebrate the end of summer reading club this year, which was a huge hit, and I will probably do it again if I can get away with it. But another thing we did as we continue to develop our programs is we've been looking for sponsors to help us out, especially with the TD summer reading and like the story time with Santa, which is where a lot of people go to get their kids photographed with Santa without having to pay a fee for it. It's a free program, but we created activity books that were sponsored by McCain Foods, Simplot, Southport, and Stride, and they helped offset the cost of that so we could continue to offer it and expand it for families in Portage. But yeah, it was a heck of a year.
Heck of a year. Any questions at all or comments? Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Ms. Kendall, for your presentation. Being on the library board, I know firsthand the work you and your staff are doing, and it's great. So my question is, and I've talked to kept council up to date a little bit, but we are undertaking a major report with a consultant about the public's feelings about the library in Portage la Prairie, an operational review, a fairly intensive report that's going to be done for the library board. But can you just give council an update where that's at and what the plan is for council to review that report or get information on it once it's completed?
Absolutely. So that project, the final report, it was slightly delayed because they had unforeseen circumstances that they had to deal with, not regarding our project at all. I did see a very rough draft today. There are a few things that I need to go over with her. I have a meeting on Thursday, which is when I'll be able to send it out to the board. But it really goes into and gives us concrete steps on where we're doing well and also where we can improve based on the feedback that we got, but also things that people want. Like a main barrier for people was transportation, which is obviously isn't within our purview, but it was listed as a major barrier in people being able to access the library and library programs. So when I do get that, I'll be coming to do another presentation, and that way we can go through it and make sure everyone has the information they need, because it is it was a very big project, as you well know. And yeah, as soon as I get that, I'll be able to pass that on along with other relevant information.
Thanks. Councillor Massey?
The plan would be, though, after the board has reviewed it, that you would come to council and give us a high-level overview about it.
Absolutely.
Just on that, I would just ask too, when that report is done, that it gets forwarded to our community safety and well-being advisory committee and group there, because some of that gathered information is important as education as part of that too would be good. I just want to comment on this presentation you gave us and this report, and from previously being on the board, is I just really like the way you've laid this out and seeing the new mission and vision laid out from your strategic plan. I think that this information and report speaks volumes about the type of environment you've built and grown over there. It's a very friendly report, easy to read and easy to understand, and it's just really well done. I like it, and I hope you share it with lots of people to understand what our library's for and how it serves our community. So thank you for that. Anyone else? Oh, thank you. Councillor Espy?
And if I may, Your Worship, I'd just like to touch on my experience at the Sport Events Congress that happened it was a couple weeks ago now. I was there in my capacity representing a sport, and I got to sit on the other side of the table, and I got to, I found myself more than just having people come to me and trying to get me to bring a sport to their community. I was gathering data on how other communities are doing things and the resources they allocate and their approaches, and I found it incredibly valuable, and I would love to talk to anyone that wants to hear more about it. There's some awfully good ideas going on there.
Awesome. Thank you. Great. Anything else? Nothing else?
And that concludes my report.
Excellent. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Waterworks Committee has nothing to report, but if anyone has something they'd like to share in terms of waterworks, I would appreciate that.
Anyone?
Seeing nothing, that concludes my report.
I have something. I would like to thank administration, Ms. Friesen, for the tour of the Poplar Bluff Reservoir we had the other day. It was exciting to see the partnership there in the new facility and look forward to it being commissioned and online. Did we get the generator? Perfect. Thank you. It was a great day. So thank you for that. Okay, Transportation Committee, Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Your Worship. Transportation Committee has nothing to report. Not sure if any of my other colleagues here would like to report on anything or make a comment on transportation.
Nothing. Thank you. Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Your Worship. Officially, I have nothing to report this evening, but I just wanted to say it only seemed like a few weeks ago where we were discussing the Community Safety Officer program, and I am happy to report that on Friday of last week, our first two officers did graduate from the training program and had their first day on the job today in a limited capacity. We're still working out a few things with vehicles, body armor, etc. So it'll be probably a few weeks before they actually hit the street, but there's a lot of administrative duties to take care of before that. So it was just a very exciting day to have them start today.
Excellent. Thank you. Any comments or questions? Just one last thing before we adjourn. I just want to offer on behalf of council our congratulations to Nathan Pito, who is a new Canadian Association of Municipal Administrator board member elect representing Manitoba. We got a nice picture that we'll share with everyone after today. Just thank you for putting your name forward for that. And I think we as a council understand us having representation provincially and federally in this situation does nothing but help us as a city by having more knowledge. And I think that you will be a great addition to that board and to your municipal colleagues in that role. So congratulations. Okay. Councillor Doyle?
If I can also take a second to congratulate Councillor Meyer as Portage la Prairie's newest first-time grandparent as of today. So congratulations.
Congratulations. Yeah. It's awesome. Congratulations. Okay, we'll adjourn council at 6:59 p.m.